and welcome to the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast. My name is Nikki. I am also known as Knitting with Cat Hair on Instagram and Cat Hair Knitting on Ravelry. I'm coming to you from Sudbury, Ontario, Canada, which lies atop the traditional lands of the Tagamashing and Anishinaabe people, where I live with my partner, our 2 daughters, and our 5 cats. Hence the name of the podcast, as I'm always finding cat hair in my knitting. So big warm welcome to all new viewers and a big welcome back to all returning viewers. This is primarily a knitting podcast. However, sometimes I talk about some of the other things I'm getting into, such as cross stitch and crochet. So I'm just going to jump right on in. Obviously, I'm filming in my living room. There's a lot of cat action happening today for some reason. So I'm sorry if that's disruptive. I'll try and edit out anything that I think is too obnoxious for viewers. All right, so let's jump right on in. I will start with an admin thing up front. I have a Marie Wallin make-along happening over on Instagram. You can find all of the details down in the description box below and over on my Instagram account. And it is running until August 1st of this year. And all you have to do is finish a Marie Wallin project. Whips are welcome. You can make literally anything by Marie Wallin and it will count. You just have to use the hashtags and I'll put them here, specifically the finished objects one. Alrighty, and I'd also, before I get started, I just wanted to extend a great big thank you to 2 podcasters who gave me such wonderful recommendations on their podcast. So I'd like to thank Nancy of the Knit, Sip and Happy podcast, which is a wonderful podcast. I've talked about it numerous times in previous episodes. Highly recommend you check it out. And Marie of the Old Time Knits podcast. I'm fairly new to her podcast. I just discovered it fairly recently and it's wonderful and I highly recommend you check out Marie's podcast as well. And I'll put links down below to both of the podcasts that I mentioned, along with all of the other things that I mentioned in this podcasting. And just FYI, I am not sponsored by anyone. I just talk about what I love in this podcast. All right, so let's jump into the knitting chat. So I'll start with what I'm wearing. Today I'm wearing my Soiree, which is a pattern by Emily Foden. I knitted out of the Knits About Winter book, but I think you can get the pattern individually on Ravelry as well. I love this sweater. This is probably my most worn sweater. It's just, I don't know if I can stand up. Let's see. It's just a boxy sweater with these beautiful details. This is what sold me. This gorgeous cable up the sides and the honeycomb under the arms. And yeah, it's really pretty. I held one strand of fingering, actually I think it was a sock yarn from Lichen and Lace, along with a strand of their mohair silk, and it's created this lovely cozy texture that I just love cuddling up in. And winter is not over here yet. We had quite a bit of spring weather. Most of our, well, not most of, I'd say a significant amount of our snow had melted, and then all of a sudden we are in the midst of a giant snow weather advisory right now. So we got a few inches yesterday and we're supposed to get a few more today. So yes, winter is hanging on, but I am enjoying this lovely hand knit, and will do until I can't wear them anymore. It gets too warm. Which actually, here in Canada, Northern Ontario, we do get a chance to wear our hand knits quite a bit. Okay, so now I will jump in with some works in progress because I do not have any finished objects today. Okay, I'm going to start with my Daffodil, which is a pattern by Marie Wallin. I'm knitting it up as part of our make-along. The pattern can be found in the Springtime Collections book, but it can also be purchased individually on Ravelry. Pattern is not size inclusive. I just want to give a heads up there. I think it only goes up to an extra large, I think, which is, yeah, an XXL to fit a bust of 48 to 50 inches. So I have been knitting on this for quite some time. Started it last year. I think it might have been around this time, or maybe it was April. I can't remember exactly. But anyways, I finished the front piece. I had already finished the back piece. Now I've finished the front piece, and I've actually seamed one side together and picked up and done the collar. I did the collar last night. So this is it so far. So I just have to seam the right side and, sorry, the right shoulder, and then the sides. And then I'm pretty sure I'm going to turn this into a short sleeve top. You'll see, I'll pop in a picture of the original. The original has long sleeves with beautiful lace detail and cable detail on it, but I think I've decided that I'm going to make this into a short. It's quite short. And I think I'm just going to keep it with short sleeves, more of a summer top. So I'm knitting it out of Homestead Super Soft, which when I washed and blocked the pieces, my garment actually shrunk on me. So I've mentioned this numerous times now, but several people had warned me that this can happen, and it did happen to me. So just a word of warning. And I don't know what causes it. Might be because there's so much spinning oil in it, and then it plumps up when you wash it. So then I guess when it plumps up, it shrinks, if that makes sense. I guess. I don't know. I don't know what causes it, but it shrunk. So now it's a lot shorter than it should have been. And I'll just show you a close-up of the details here. So there's alternating lace and cable panels all across, and the sleeves have the same. So what I think I'm going to do, like I mentioned, is do short sleeves on this one and just pick up on the edge and do some ribbing similar to the ribbing that's done on the collar. I'll see how that looks. The one thing I don't particularly care for, or that I'm not as happy with, is that in the larger sizes, to extend the body width, there's just this panel of, I guess, reverse stockinette. So the bigger you are, the more reverse stockinette you're gonna have, which kind of creates this big like panel of nothing, whereas the rest of the body is very intricate looking. So I'll have to see how that looks. On the model, it looks great because I'm sure she's wearing the smallest size, which kind of stops right here, I think. So you don't have all this extra reverse stockinette. So anyways, we'll see how it looks. And if it doesn't look good, I might have to do long sleeves and put some lace in it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyways, one step closer to finishing this beautiful project. So as mentioned, I'm knitting it out of Homestead Super Soft in the colorway Sweet Pea, which never shows up. I always try, but there's a multitude of colors in this. There's lots of purples and yellows, and every once in a while there's a splotch of red. Maybe I can show you the red show up. Yeah, there's a red speckle right there. Every once in a while. It's kind of fun. I like this yarn. I know some people don't like it. It's definitely not super soft, as the name might claim. It definitely softened with washing. However, I would still put this in the more of a rustic kind of, yeah, it's definitely on the rustic end of things. Spectrum, but I don't mind that. I am here for all of the rustic yarns. So I am knitting this on size US 1 2.25 millimeter needles for the ribbing, US 2 for the rest, which is a 2.75 millimeters. Did I write it down? Yes. And I'm making the size extra large to accommodate my 45-inch bust. My gauge is still loose, even though I'm on super small needles. So it's still going to end up being, you know, larger than it was intended. But I'm okay with that. I'd rather have it be a little bit larger than too small. And I think that's it for the Daffodil. It's been such a fun knit. I really, really enjoy it. And it looks, I've mentioned this before, it looks really complicated, but it's not. Though, I mean, keeping track of where you are in the pattern is a little bit tricky. I'd say that's probably the most difficult part, but like the stitches themselves are not difficult at all. And I'm cabling without a cable needle. I'm having no problems. So yeah, and it's housed in this adorable little fox bag that I got from My Needle Crafts, which is a store on Etsy. It's a Canadian bag maker. Okay, so that's my first Marie Wallin that I'm knitting for our make along. And then I have a second one. So the second one I'm knitting is the pattern is found in the Shetland book. I love literally, I think every single pattern in this book. I would love to make every single one of them. Again, they're not size inclusive. I am making the Samphrey. I'll pop in a picture of what the finished piece looks like so you can see. And I am making a size smaller than normal because my gauge is looser. So I have sized down to make the size large. Should be about 49 inches when finished around, which on a 45-inch bust, that's 4 inches. That's plenty. So I've talked about this project numerous times in the past. I've explained what I'm doing differently. It is meant to be knit flat and seamed in pieces and seamed. I'm so sorry. My cat he did this to me last time too. I don't know what his problem is. Anyways, so I have made a few modifications. So instead of knitting it flat and then seaming the whole garment, I started off by knitting it in the round. So this is the body. So you start off, it's bottom up. You start off with this huge panel of ribbing. I think this is 12 centimeters of ribbing. And then you get into the color work. There was some bulging that happens because of this long panel of ribbing, and then normally you go up a needle size to start, the body of a sweater. Because there was because of this large panel of ribbing, it was causing some blousing that was happening, or bulging. So to combat that, I went down needle sizes and then gradually increased to kind of it's kind of like more of a, I guess, an hourglass figure. So it goes in and then out at the top. And yeah, so this is what I have for the body. Those of you who have been watching or seen previous episodes might be able to tell that I've ripped out what I had. I had actually separated for front and back at what I thought would be the sleeve holes and started knitting back and forth, and then realized that I had separated too soon and it was going to be, in my opinion, it would be too short. So I've ripped that back. I've placed the whole body on barber cord on hold. And I've gone ahead and started making the sleeves because I figure once I make the sleeves, I'll be able to tell how much of a hole I need for the armhole once the sleeves are finished, and that will help me gauge where I should place that. That's my theory anyways. So I've started making the sleeves. Again, the sleeves they're bottom up. These are knit flat. I'm knitting them flat 2 at a time just because I could do them 2 at a time. And it has a large panel of ribbing again for the cuffs. And now I've just started into the color work. And I will just keep on knitting until I'm finished those sleeves. And then, like I said, I'll use the finished width to determine how deep I should be making my armholes. And I'm hoping that's going to help me. This one may not get done for August 1st. Oh my goodness, my cat is attacking all my yarn. But I'll do my best. Okay, and the yarns that I'm using are the original called for colors because I just loved all of them so much. They're very fall-like. It's kind of like a fall rainbow. Here they are here. Oh, you can't see the purples. There's a bunch of purples in there too. Where are they hiding? There they are. There. So these are Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. I think there's 14 different colors. It's a lot, but in true Farrell style, you're only ever using 2 colors per row. So it's really not that bad. Okay, the cat is now getting into my spinning fiber. Stop. found a piece of fluff. Anyways, okay. So that's my progress on the Samphrey and kind of the modifications that I've made and where I'm at. And yeah, it's a very enjoyable knit. Aside from, you know, when you start going rogue and making changes to things, aside from that stuff and, you know, ripping back to deal with the mistakes that I'm making, it's overall very enjoyable. I kind of wish I would have knit it. I don't know. Knitting color work in the round is so much quicker, especially when you have lots of floats to catch. The Samphrey has a ton of float catching if you catch floats. So that means there's a lot of spots where you're knitting with the same color over more than 5 stitches. Ouch. And so you essentially have to like catch the other yarn as you're carrying it on the back. And so doing that purling is a bit of a pain, I would say. So it's nicer when it's in the round and you're only knitting. But last year I knit a cardigan by Marie Wallin called the Chestnut, and I did it as per pattern. So knit flat in pieces and then seamed. And it really wasn't that bad at all. But there wasn't a lot of float catching in that one either. So it wasn't too bad. I don't mind purling. It's not a problem for me. And I'm not I'm not one of those people who rushes the process, like what am I trying to say? I am a process knitter. That's what I'm trying to say. So I'm not like, gotta get the product, gotta go as fast as I can. That's not me. I enjoy literally every time I get to knit anything. So for the most part. So yeah, I'm very much a process knitter. So I'm enjoying the process. And I think that's it. I'm just going to check my notes really quickly. So the main body of the sweater that I'm knitting, the Samphrey, is knit on US 3 needles. And those are a size down. Oh, sorry, that's a 3.25 millimeter needle, I think. Didn't write it down. But anyways, yeah, so it's small. Small enough. And that's smaller than, I think Marie uses a US 4. But I can't get her gauge. She's very tight knitter and I'm not. So, okay. So that's it for the 2 Marie Wallin projects that I'm working on. Now I'll move on to, I have 4 more projects to show you. Housed in this adorable little bee bag, also by My Needle Crafts, is a pair of socks that I'm making for my partner. I showed them last time and I almost committed to saying that I would have them done by this episode, and yet I do not. Probably because I casted something else on, but yeah, I'm nearing the end of them. I'm doing them 2 at a time. They are knit, they're just vanilla socks. I'm knitting them cuff down, which is my go-to method. I have knit socks toe up, but I have found that I have difficulty getting them to fit my feet, specifically the heel placement. So I'm sure I just need more practice at it. But yeah, my go-to for vanilla is just cuff down. So this is what I have so far on the 2 socks. They are not perfectly matched. I explained this in my last episode, but I'm knitting from the same ball, so I'm using either end. So the patterns are actually kind of reversed, but I mean, they are so similar that it really doesn't matter, I don't think. So last time I had just been putting in the heels. I've now put in the heels, both heels. I'm using a contrast yarn for those. And now I'm just knit in the round, and I just need to put it in the toe. I'm literally gonna knit till the end of the ball as far as I can, and then put in the toe with the contrast yarn. So the main yarn that I'm using, the patterned yarn, is Drops Fable, which is, I believe, a 75%. Oh, here I have the label. Drops Fable print, superwash treated sock yarn. It just says 75% wool, 25% polyamide. And I don't know, this doesn't really have a color name, so it's 542 if that means anything to anybody. And then the contrast yarn that I'm using for the heels and the toes is a Yushachita sock yarn, which I think is a 75% merino, 25% nylon, in this really fun color. So it's green with, there's like pink and orange speckles in it, and blue. Yeah, blue and brown too. So it's really fun. You can definitely tell the difference between the two. This sock yarn is much more rustic, and this is, being merino, it's much softer. But I think they're turning out okay. And my partner's favorite color is green, so this this will fit the bill. And he's so knitworthy. He loves all the handmade socks I've made him. He wears all the time. So that's that. And I'm doing that, like I mentioned, 2 at a time. I use Chagu red lace US 2.25 millimeter needles to knit my socks. And those are a 72 stitch. I do 64 for myself and 72 for my partner. Okay, so now we will move on to another project that I'm working on for my partner that I had just started last time. This is called the Cotswold Henley. It's by Meghan Babin. I'll pop in a picture of the finished sweater so you can see what it looks like. And I have made quite a bit of progress on this. I had just finished the ribbing last time, I think. I'm trying to see where the front is. Oh, this is the front. And so now you can see the texture. So there's 2 different textures in this sweater. Let's see if I can. So the center is this texture here. That is called the garter basket weave texture. And then on the sides, there's this Henley rib, they call it. Yeah. Okay, the green is not showing up nearly as pretty as it is in person. It's just a Cascade 220 Heathers, but yeah, it's really pretty. It's got like this, you can't see it. It's a deep forest green, I would say, with kind of like yellowy green undertones, like heathers in it. It's really pretty, really pretty. I think it's nice. And of course, my partner loves green, so he's getting a green sweater. Wow, yeah, it looks super, super gray brown green on the screen. It's not. In person, it's like a really vibrant moss green. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. What did I do differently? Oh, I omitted the tubular cast-ons, and I will be omitting the tubular bind-offs because I can't be bothered. I've done it before. I know how to do it. I just don't want to do it. For me, the effort that it takes me to do isn't worth the outcome. So yeah, that's the Cotswold Henley. And there's no rush to get this done. I'll aim to have it done for next fall, winter kind of thing. And yeah, the reason I chose the Cascade 220 Heathers is because it's quite a soft yarn. It is 100% wool, non-superwash, but it's definitely on the softer side. And my partner is not ready for rustic yarns yet. I have to work on him. I have to build him up, you know. My goal is to eventually get him to the point where he can wear Let Lopey. We'll see if that happens. We shall see. Okay, what else do I have? Okay, I have 2 more projects to show. 2 more knitting projects, and then I'm going to talk about some spinning as well today. So housed in my homemade my homemade project bag is my Nightshift shawl that I'm making, which is a pattern by Andrea Mowry. I'll pop in a picture of the finished shawl so you can see what it looks like. And Progress Keeper shows where I was last time. And this is how much I've done. So quite a few inches. I truthfully would have had way more, but can't remember what I did, if I dropped stitches and then tried to pick them up and picked them up incorrectly on the I-cord edges. I could not figure out how to put the stitches back on. I tried so many different ways and for whatever reason couldn't get it. So there is one spot where the I-cord looks a little slightly different. And yeah, I kept ripping back because I'm like, I don't like it. Ripped back after I knit like several inches. Ripped back, tried to fix it, didn't fix it, did the same thing. I must have done it like 3 or 4 times. Anyways, so I don't have as much as I would have, but I think it's still looking really pretty. I'm doing a really neutral version. I'm only using 2 yarns for this, 2 colors, but the yarns that I'm using are Noro Curion, and they are a color changing yarn. So I think they're 100% wool. Yes, it just says 100% wool. I think it's like an Aran weight or worsted weight. These are the 2 colorways I'm using. And there's this beigey brown, has browns in it too actually. And then a gray, black, brown mix. And so I am using the beige brown as the background color and then doing the mosaic stitches, like the ones that stick out, in the brown gray one. Oh, I really like it. I think it'll be really nice because it'll go with everything. I mentioned this previously. I had started making another one of these over a year ago, I think now. And I used 2 different colors of Noro Silk Garden yarns, and they were quite, actually I used 3 colors, quite bright, and they just, they were just too rainbowy for me. And my best friend who loves all the colors, I knew she would love it. So I finished it up for her for her birthday, which was right after Christmas, and gifted it to her, and she wears it all the time. Like, she absolutely loves it. It's like perfect for her. And then I vowed to make myself one in a more neutral color scheme. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, and I am using US 8 5mm needles to make my Nightshift. Okay, and then finally I mentioned last time that I was going to be doing a cast on as a result of an job interview that I had. So it was either going to be a celebratory cast on if I got the job, or it was going to be a self-pity cast on if I didn't. So I'm happy to say that I actually got the job permanently. So yay, it's a celebratory cast on. And I didn't cast on the project that I was planning on casting on, which was supposed to be this Sunday cardigan by Petite Knit. But because the weather had changed so drastically to basically be like spring for a while, I just wasn't feeling, you know, a let lopey mohair combination at the time. I was like, no, I need something lighter, something brighter, something that reminds me of spring colors. So I went ahead instead and cast on for a Rocket Tee, which is a pattern by Tanis Lavalee, I think, of Tanis Fibre Arts, Canadian designer and yarn dyer. I'll pop a picture in of what it looks like, the finished project, and here is what I have so far. Wow, so it really looks quite stripy on camera. In person, you can't really see the difference as much. So yeah, I'm using 2 different yarns. So the pattern calls for, it calls for you to use a mohair silk and alternate with a merino. So I'm actually using a sock yarn. So it's, I think it's a 75% superwash merino with 25% nylon in it. And then I'm alternating that with a silk mohair. I think the standard, like, what is it, 78-22 or something like that. silk mohair. And doesn't this just scream Neapolitan ice cream? And that's what the names of the colors are. So it's like perfectly fitting. It's just, yeah, it makes me want to eat ice cream. So these yarns are by an American yarn dyer company called Felicity Yarn Studio. And the dyer behind Felicity Yarn Studio is named Zoe. And she actually has her own podcast here on YouTube, which I highly recommend you check out. Also called Felicity Yarn Studio Podcast, I believe. Yeah, so I had won these yarns. Oh my gosh. I think it was like in 2020 maybe. So like 3 years ago or so. Yeah, so I had won these in a giveaway that she was having. And I finally decided on the perfect project. So I just have the 2 skeins and I am just literally going to knit till I run out. And then the pattern calls for an I-cord bind off. Or an I-cord bind off, and then I think you pick up around the collar and do an I-cord, and same with the sleeves, I think. So I probably won't have, I know I'm not going to have enough yarn to do the I-cord, so I'll probably have to do it in another yarn, but I have several yarns I can use, I think, that would work for this. And yeah, I just wanted something light and airy and perfect for summer. I think this will be perfect to just throw on with a pair of jeans or over top of a linen dress or something like that. Super cute. Yeah, I guess like, and if this works out, if I have enough yarn, so I am making the size, what am I making? I don't know. I didn't write it down. Size 48 inches, I think, to accommodate my 45-inch bust. My gauge is a little loose. Again, I'm always loose. So it's going to be a little bigger, I think. I don't know. I went down a needle size, so we'll see. I don't know. I did a gauge swatch. I did. And with the recommended needles. And then I just went down a needle size based on the gauge that I got from that. And then didn't measure my gauge after. So we'll see. We'll see how large it turns out. But it definitely won't be too small. But yeah, this could be the perfect project if you just have, you know, 1 skein of a merino fingering weight and a skein of silk mohair to pair together. Alternate, not pair together, sorry. Yeah, because it goes a long way. So that is my celebratory cast on, and it's knitting up so quickly. I really enjoy working on it. I think I'm using US 4 3.5 millimeter needles for this, so it's at a fairly loose gauge. At least it's loose for me. So I'll have to wear something, a little tank top underneath it, but yeah, I really like it. And that is it for all of the knitting today, but I will, like I said, move on to spinning. If you are just here for the knitting, thank you so much for sticking around. And I hope that if you did enjoy this podcast that you will give it a like and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of my future episodes. And now I'm going to move on to spinning. So I have been spinning most days. I don't want to say I've been spinning every single day because there was a period where I was very ill with sinus issues again, and I took a break. So probably about a week-long break from spinning. But I did ply my first skein of yarn. So for those who are new, I started spinning, I think it was February, I want to say February 11th. I think I wrote it down somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was like February 11th because March 11th was my 1 month spin-anniversary, I guess, if you could say that. So, just to recap, this was the very first skein that I spun. I'm using a drop spindle, an Ashford drop spindle to spin all my yarn. And this was the first skein. It's a single ply. It's super, super chunky, bulky. I probably won't knit with this. I mentioned this last time. I'll probably just keep it as a souvenir to show where I started, where I came from. And then I went on to spin something a little bit thinner. So maybe I can hold them up. This one's a little bit thinner. I was aiming for fingering weight because I want to make a pair of socks for Carrie of My Wool Mitten Farms podcast's Sock Spin Along 2023, I think it is, or Sock Spin Along 23. I'll put the hashtag here. Basically, you spin yarn for a pair of socks and then knit them. So yeah, that's what gave me the push to start spinning. Although I've been heavily influenced by several other friends and podcasters that I've seen picking up spinning over the last few years. So yeah. And then I finally plied my very first yarn. So this is, I don't know, I don't have a wraps per inch, so I don't know exactly how thick it is, but whatever it is, I'm going to be using it for my socks. And this is 24 grams, and I'm going to use this for my contrasts because it's just not enough to make a pair of socks, obviously. So I will use this for the contrast pieces, like the heels and toes, maybe cuffs. I don't know if I'll have enough. It is not perfect, but I think it'll work. And so that was my first time plying. So what I explained last time is that I have 3 spindles, 2 lighter weight ones and then a thicker, heavier one. So I spin on the 2 thin ones. So I spin half the fiber on one, half the fiber on the other, and then I use the thicker spindle to ply the 2 together. And so when I was learning how to ply, the process of plying, I don't know how to explain it, but basically that resulted in me, when I picked up my spindle the next time to actually spin again, to start continuous spinning. So I think because the process of plying is a certain movement that just came naturally, and that carried into my spinning. So I'm no longer doing the park and draft method, and it wasn't an intentional like, oh, okay, I'm going to stop doing park and draft, I'm going to start doing continuous spinning. It just happened literally after I plied. It just became, that was the way that I spin. So I'm very proud of myself. And like the book that I was reading, Respect the Spindle, said, you know, oftentimes people will just like naturally move from park and draft to continuous spinning. If you don't start that way, some people start that way, start right off. But yeah, so it's a lot faster, definitely a lot faster. I have dropped my spindle a couple times though. With the park and draft, it's really hard to drop it because you're only holding it above your knees or whatever on your lap, and you're parking it to let the twist out. So there's very little opportunity for it to fall, but when you actually continue a spin, there's lots of opportunity. So I've dropped them a couple times, but nothing serious, and I didn't buy expensive spindles to start off with, so just because I didn't want to risk breaking it, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. And I have to say, I love it. I absolutely love spinning. In fact, like when I don't spin in a day, I miss it very much. So I'm really looking forward to more spinning. So I've actually gone ahead and spun up all of the gray Corriedale that I started with. And now I have moved on to this loveliness. This is, the colorway is called Toffee Corriedale. It's this beautiful like rust color. It's showing up quite bright there. It's, I'd say it's darker in person. And so this is going to be the main color of my socks. That's the goal. And I have spun up, what have I done here? A quarter of the fiber so far. And look how thin I've gotten. Thin and very consistent. I'm so proud of myself. I feel like, yeah, I don't know, it might be hard to spin thicker now because I'm so used to spinning thin. So that's the first cup. That's a, what did I say? That's an 1/8 of the fiber. And then the other 1/8 will be on here. So I'll have a quarter of it, and then I will apply these 2 together to make the yarn, and then finish spinning up the rest. Yeah, so really enjoying it. Highly recommend giving it a go because you'd like literally never know. This is the same for any craft or anything really. You never know what's going to capture your heart until you try it. It's amazing to me. Like I did not expect to be good at spinning. I certainly didn't expect to be perfect. Like, I don't go into things thinking I'm going to be perfect. I just want to get through them and survive. But the truth is, I feel like I don't know, I've done really well with the spinning, and it's something I really enjoy. I know it's not the case for everybody, and that's okay. We all have different interests, and our hearts get tugged in different directions. And that's why I just think it's really important to give things a try. And if you don't love it, you don't like it, you hate it, that's okay. Now you know, right? Like you tried it. Of course, there's things that we could try again too. We might like them at a later date. Because I do think, and this is true for me, even with knitting, I mean, I learned how to knit when I was about 8 years old and did not take to it at all. I was like, not interested. And now I can't imagine going a day without knitting. Like, honestly, it's that obsessive. And I know you guys get me, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. So yeah, I think you should give it a go if you have never tried it. And you have interest in trying it. I think definitely give it a go. And it doesn't have to be an expensive hobby. I paid $12 for my fiber and my spindle. I would say the spindles were a little more expensive than I should have probably spent. But I did want to make sure they were well balanced. So there's a lot of spindles out there, and there's some cheap ones. I know there's like, you know, $10, $15 ones. My concern was that I wanted something I knew, like I said, was going to be balanced properly, so it would spin well. So I invested a little bit. So I think my spindles were $37 for the little ones, and the big one was like $47 or something like that. Anyways, they were a little more expensive than the spindles. You know, there are cheaper spindles is what I'm trying to say. It's just, you want to make sure that they're going to work for you. You don't want just like some rando handcrafted off balance spindle. So yeah, that is it for the spinning. Oh no, that's not it for the spinning. What am I talking about? So because I'm loving spinning so much, I literally went ahead, I think it may have been right after the very first week of spinning, I went ahead and joined the Longway Homestead's breed study. So it's a Canadian fiber breed study. What they do is they send you every month a package of fiber. It's 113 grams, I think, so 4 ounces of fiber from one particular sheep breed, and they give you a little card. So I've already gotten my first one. So my first one was Jacob. So they give you a little card that talks about the sheep. It talks about the fiber. It talks about what kinds of yarn, what it would be best suited for. So I found that so intriguing because I have not knit with a lot of different sheep breed fiber types. I think I can count on one hand how many I've knit with. And merino seems to be very prevalent, and that's what we hear about all the time. But yeah, so I found it really interesting to learn about Jacob. Reading about it, I thought that was really interesting. You can see right here how the Jacob sheep have different colors in their coats. And so even from one sheep, you can get different colored wools, and you can also get different micron counts, which I thought was pretty interesting too. So they can range so the staple length can range from 3 to 6 inches, and the fiber diameter 25 to 35 microns, which is quite a bit of a difference, 25 to 35. And yeah, it comes, so like it can come in different, like I said, colors. And so the one I got, just take it out, let's see if you can see it, has these really long, maybe you can see here, these really long white, almost like, I don't know if they're guard hairs or whatever, but yeah, there's like these really long white hairs, and then the majority of it's like all different shades of gray when I look at it. Can you see how it's kind of like darker and lighter? I think it's gonna look so cool when it's spun up into yarn. Yeah, and sheep. Sheepy, this is the one that my cat was trying to get. He loves sheepy yarns and fiber apparently too. So yeah, I'm really, really excited. This is, I don't mind this at all. I mean, it's not like merino soft, but it's, I don't know, it feels nice to me. Oh, there's some black hairs in there too. So interesting. So this, the Corriedale that I got was recommended as a very good beginner fiber to start spinning with because the staple length is quite long. So it just gives you that extra time to draft and to spin. So it's not going to break on you as frequently as a shorter staple fiber. So yeah, I've been practicing with the Corriedale with the intent of knitting a pair of socks. And once I'm done with my Corriedale, I will start spinning up all of this gorgeous Breed of the Month fiber. So yeah, really excited. And of course, the idea of learning about some different sheep breeds that are found specifically in my country, in Canada, I think is really cool. And supporting local, like local as in Canadian farmers. And then of course Longway Homestead, which I will link down below. They also have, if you're not interested in spinning, but you like to, you'd like to knit with yarns that are made from single breed sheep. Single breeds. They also offer a yarn of the month kind of breed study. And so each month you would get a yarn that is from a single breed. And yeah, that would be a really cool way to experiment as well, to start getting a feel for the different wools that are out there, because there's so many. Like it blows my mind. I thought this was the best way to just get a feel for different breeds. So yeah, price wise, I paid, I think it's $22 Canadian a month for the fiber, but you have to pay for shipping and tax as well. I think the yarn is a little more expensive, probably because it's already spun for you. So yeah, fiber tends to be cheaper than spun yarn. But yeah, I highly recommend you check it out. And you also get, when you purchase the subscription, so you're committing to a whole year, you get access to their breed study, which is on their website, which is a wealth of information. They're just starting to develop it now, I think. But yeah, it's like like a wealth of information about all the different shape, and then they want to link that to recommended projects that people have knit out of those. So there's a hashtag you can use over on Instagram if you're knitting with one of the breed study yarns or whatever, and that way people can see what other people are making from those yarns and from that fiber. So Cher of the Lathe and Loom podcast, which I've mentioned numerous times before, excellent podcast. Cher's, yeah, she's a wealth of knowledge too. She does a lot of different things. I found it really interesting. I think it was 2 episodes ago, she talked about her weaving. She showed how she uses her like huge loom to do weaving, which is very cool. I've never tried weaving. Not sure I'm ready to delve into that yet, but yeah, it might be something I try in the future. But yeah, she is a spinner. She's a knitter. She does her own hand dyeing. She does natural dyeing. Yeah, she has a lot of information to offer over on her podcast. And she was talking about I think she has a different breed of the month type study that she's doing. It might be an American one. And she was trying to think up what she was going to make with these individual breeds once she spun it up into yarn. And I think she decided on a blanket, and she had recommended, or she had mentioned a blanket. I think I looked it up. I can't remember the name of it, but anyways, check her out. And I think that's a great idea, and I think I might do that as well. So I've been looking at different blanket patterns to see. I want something that squares, so that each square I could do. And it doesn't have to be knitting. I could do crochet, because I do know how to do crochet a little bit. So I might end up doing that. So right now I think I'm leaning towards the Nature's Walk or Nature's Path pattern by Sandra Paul of the Cherry Heart podcast. But yeah, I just started looking at patterns. So And I have lots of time. I haven't even started to spin my Breed of the Month fiber yet. So anyways, yeah, that's my excitement. My exciting news about the spinning, on the spinning front. So what else? I think that's it for all of the making talk. And in terms of life stuff, there's really not a lot going on, although I was off for the last week. It's March break here, so our kids are out of school, and I always take the week off. We did pretty much nothing all week. Yeah, it was a pretty lazy week. I shouldn't say we did nothing. We didn't really leave the house is what I should say. So we did watch lots of movies and play lots of video games, and we did watch some TV shows. Daughter and I played some board games, and it's kind of nice, like even when we put on a show or whatever, I'll knit or spin, and she's a little artist and she loves to draw, so she'll sit there and draw, and we kind of just do our own creative thing while we watch a show together and talk or whatever. It's nice. And I did some cleaning, boring stuff like, mopping the floors. Ugh, something that should have been done a long time ago, but just kind of like falls to the wayside because I'd rather be knitting or spinning. And what else did I do? Yeah, did a bit of cleaning. Tidied up my bookshelf. I don't know if you can tell from the last podcast episode, but yeah, I'm getting a pile of books ready to put out. We have every summer we put out just kind of like a little, it's not really one of those little libraries that are like fixed in a fixed location or whatever. We just put out a bin of books and people take them and drop books off, and it's really fun. So I was just getting some books together to get in preparation for the nice weather when I can put those out. And what else have I been up to? Went to my first knit night. I missed the very first one because I was so sick. I mentioned this before. I get really bad sinus problems, and every once in a while it like takes me out, like completely takes me out. Like all I can do is lay down. I have to go to bed. So that happened. That was probably the worst I've ever had. I want to call it a sinus migraine because yeah, it was really, really, really bad. And it happened to fall on the same day when our first knit night was supposed to happen. So I missed it. But apparently there was still a good turnout and everyone had fun. So it was great. And I made it to the second one, which was 2 days ago. We go to a little pub called Nowhere. It's really close to me. I can actually probably walk to it. Yeah, I could totally walk to it, which is nice. And the staff there are super friendly and welcoming, and they reserved a table for us, and we just show up and knit, and people walk by and stop and chat. And we had one person who was interested in possibly participating in the future just because she saw us sitting there doing some crafting, and that's really great. It's really awesome. It's so wonderful to connect with people over our crafts, isn't it? That's one of the main goals of me starting this podcast in the very first place, was to connect with the knitting community. And yeah, it's been so wonderful. And now I'm able to do that a little more in real life too, which is awesome. So yeah, that's been really fun. If you are in the Sudbury area, and you're interested in a in-person knit night, do get in touch with me. You can send me an email. I always post it in the description down below. Or you can just flip me a message over on Instagram if you use Instagram, and let me know, and I'll give you the details and the time and the location and stuff. And yeah, it's so great. So awesome. And what else? I'm trying to think of anything else that's been happening. Not much. No, just hanging low. Thought it was gonna be storming more than it is right now. I broke off plans with my friend because I thought that we were gonna get dumped on, and I didn't feel like shoveling my driveway to get out. So we didn't actually get that much snow. We'll see what happens. But anyways, I'm gonna leave it there, and I really hope that you have the most wonderful next 3 to 4 weeks, depending on when I get back here, filled with all of the making, and yeah, lots of beautiful weather. So yeah, I'll see you all in 3 weeks, hopefully. Bye, take care, happy making.